Welcome everyone to the Traditional Leadership Podcast. The main intention for creating this podcast is to influence the youth about the leadership and how traditional values and qualities of the leaders in the past can be helpful to improve the leadership qualities of the youth for a better society. Leadership starts from the family unit, from the father and the mother. However, we live in an era where the divorce rate is getting closer to 60%. Hence, the core of the leadership has been broken among many modern day individuals. Today, I have invited as my first guest for the podcast, Koutsikas, one of the best public speaking coaches and business leadership communication coaches in Australia. Con has helped me to improve my public speaking skills numerous times. Even today, when I go to public speaking, in the public, I realize how helpful the tips and the teachings that Con has given me. He is not only a skilled public speaking coach, but also a man with a great heart. Welcome, Con, to my first podcast.
Thank you, Nilendra. It's a pleasure to be your number one guest, first guest cab off the rank, and I wish you all the best with your podcast. I'm sure it will be very, very well received.
Thank you, Con. So firstly, can you explain how did you get into the public speaking? Is it something you bought from your birth or did you practice and work hard? How did this happen? How did you get into this space?
Purely by accident, to be really, really honest. It's a very long story, but I won't bore your audience. We'll keep it as short and succinct as I can. For probably 25 years of my life, I was involved in the commercial furniture industry. And I had my own business, senior management roles, and high-level sales. So some of the contracts we negotiated were in excess of $1.5 to $2 million. A point in my life came where I was in a very toxic personal relationship, and my business, it affected my business, it affected my relationship with my children, it affected pretty much my whole life. And I was listening to an audio book by the famous American motivational speaker, Mr. Zig Ziglar. And he said one of the best ways that you could build your confidence was to learn to speak in public. And so, having zero confidence at that time because of what was going on in my life, I immediately Googled Toastmasters. I found a club here in Adelaide that you and I were both members of at a time, Adelaide City. And I went along, and I remember the very first night, as you remember, Nilendra, our club, we have stairs going down into the dungeon. And I got halfway down, and the fight that was going on in my mind was just, Con, you have to do this. You have to do this. No, get out of here. This is dangerous. Con, this is going to be good for you.
It's like you're getting into a fight in a pit.
A fight, exactly. And I went up and down the stairs about 3 times. And our club president at the time and our spiritual leader, Mr. Andres Bilkins, again, who you remember, heard me and opened up the door, and I had nowhere else to go. And for the first 4 months, I was a little bit in and out because of what was going on in my life until things, straightened things out. And about 2 years later, I got better. I got my confidence back because I was always very confident in business and my relationships, but this particular instance had really been quite traumatic. And Andres rang me up one day and he said, "I need somebody to help me co-facilitate a workshop." I said, "Oh, yeah, okay." He said, "I'll pay you for it." I'm going, "Oh, okay, how good's this?" And so that was really, really the start. I had so much fun. The interaction, it was just great. It was a really, really liberating experience. And so that really led me onto the journey here. Andres and I did some programs together. I've done my own thing. We still collaborate together from time to time, but I've gone on and I've got my own business now. So that's pretty much the short version.
So yeah, that's a wonderful story. How it has helped to overcome most of your issues, at least the public speaking, the effect the public speaking can do to someone. You are a prime example for that.
Mm.
So can you explain how the leadership skills that you have improved through public speaking, how it has helped to lead a team
Mm.
or lead a community
Mm.
or lead the society?
Yeah, great question. Look, I read a quote some time ago that said, all good leaders, all good communicators are not necessarily good leaders, but all good leaders are good or great communicators. And so we have a message as leaders, whether it's within our community, whether it's within our businesses, whether it's within our families. We play a role as leaders, and unless we can articulate our message and demonstrate not only with our actions but our words, so there's that, it's congruent. What we say and what we look is the same thing. And so that lesson for me was very, very powerful. Leading people not only by the words that you use, but how you say them. Very, very powerful. Very powerful.
Your actions. So if you say something and then if you do something else, it doesn't. The energy doesn't come the right way, I believe.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's one of the things. There's the old saying, jokingly, do as I say, not as I do. But the reality is from a leadership position, whether you're leading a team of 2 or 20 people, your actions need to demonstrate what you expect or what you need other people to do. And we lead from the front. And so that's really, really important.
So now that's a great example to build leadership, how the public speaking and also your inner core can help. So it's just public speaking plus your actions. It's just not public speaking, not your action as well. Both together, you can get into that top level or the next level of leadership. So the business communication leadership is that something you are working on. So you're helping out individuals who are in the business arena, who are the leaders, and they are struggling to communicate. So can you explain about that? How do you support them?
Yeah, look, again, it kind of goes back to what I said a little bit earlier. Business people, whether they're the owners of the business or managers or leaders within the organization, they have a really, really good understanding of what their business is all about and what their core values or skill sets or product knowledge is. They'll have a strong level. What they lack often is their ability to communicate that in a way that other people understand. Not only from a language perspective, but to engage somebody and for me to get you to follow me and do what I want you to do, I have to connect and appeal to your values. If our values are poles apart, there's no connection. And so there's 2 key things that I tell people and I teach. It's, first of all, you've got to speak people's language, that you need to use language that they understand, but you must appeal and connect to what their values are. As you know, we have a hierarchy of values. My values are very different to yours, as are very different to the next person. And so it's really, really important that when we're engaging people from a leadership position and getting people motivated, inspired, we have to connect what our message is to their values.
You have to find the mutual grounds, I think. That's what you are trying to emphasize, right?
Mm.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, so now recently you have participated to the Inventors Essay Presentation Night as the guest speaker. That is
Mm.
a huge honor for like anyone, especially I'm in engineering field.
Mm.
Uh, so as an engineer, it's like one of the dreams to participate in the engineers inventors essay presentation. It's like all the smart guys are there, and then you have to convince them. It's just like it's not easy. So how did you manage to do that? I mean,
Okay.
it's a dream for anyone.
So it it kind of goes back to a little bit what I said before. These, first of all, it was a tremendous honor to speak to this group of people, and these guys. When I say guys, I use that loosely. There were women in there as well. So these people, so I don't get into trouble here with gender issues. These people are so clever. They see things from a completely different perspective to how people not in that field see it. I see that, they see that, and it's just completely different. And their biggest challenge is speaking language that people understand. They're really high tech. They know from an engineering point of view, whether it's mechanical, electrical, whatever it is, their technical knowledge is astounding, but they can't relate it. And so, as an inventor or an innovator, if you're going to pitch the idea to a financial institution or investors to get some funding, or you're looking to get people on board in other areas or collaborators, you have to use language that everybody understands. You can't speak high tech because it just goes straight over the top.
Happens all the time.
And so that for them is the biggest challenge to speak what I call common denominator language. Okay, speak what the majority will understand. And secondly, is again from a leadership perspective, people, us human beings, we think in pictures, we don't see words. Okay, and so they need to create images in people's minds. They need to connect on an emotional level as well. What does the problem that they're solving look like? And if their invention or their solution is adopted and becomes mainstream, how does that impact the world? How does that change our lives? How does that benefit our lives? And so that's their biggest challenge. So they were the two things that I fundamentally spoke about for them to get a grasp of, we know you're smart. Now talk to me in my language so I can understand.
Oh, that's a really interesting message that you have given even in this podcast, Con. It's I know in our field, most of the engineers, most of the guys or the girls, or most of the people uh, who are in the industry struggling with the communication and then to pass their message, their intelligence to the society. This is one of the major problems that the people in the engineering face. So I know that you can help the people in these industries a lot with your intelligence and skills. So you have answered this before as well, but I wanted to get a full answer and full idea. So you said I can still remember you were saying when you were coming to even today you mentioned when you're coming to the Toastmasters when you first started to that uh, the pit when you're getting down. So when you first started that, uh, you were after a bad breakup. Now, how the public speaking or this journey has helped for your relationships, and then for social relationships as a whole, and then your personal relationships or with the partners.
Uh,
How has it helped to your relationships?
yeah, look, great question. Great question. Here's the thing, and I say this to people all the time. Your ability to speak in public is directly related to your level of self-esteem. Everyone that fears public speaking, and that's probably 75% of the adult population in the Western world, if you drill down and you ask yourself really hard questions, it gets back to how we see ourselves, what we think of ourselves. And so for someone who, let's say, if I just grab somebody off the street now, say, right, you've got 15 minutes, I'm going to put you in front of 300 strangers and I want you to do a presentation. The majority of them will run so fast, it just won't matter. But that ultimately gets back to how they see themselves, what they think of themselves. And so how that helped me was when I went to Toastmasters before this relationship, successful business, very confident, never had any networking all the time, used to go to networking events, not a problem having a conversation. But this relationship stripped me of my self-worth, my value of myself. And the other thing people need to understand is if you don't value you, how can you expect anybody else to value you? Getting back to your question, how has it helped me with my relationships? Yeah. Not only with my partner, my current partner, who I've been in a relationship for quite a while now, but also my children and friends, is I have a level of self-worth that my self-worth isn't reliant on other people's opinions. And so I have a level of confidence to be able to convey my message or articulate a proposition, whether it's what we're going to do tomorrow night, what I want to do when I want to see my grandchildren, whatever it is, I have that confidence that I don't need other people's approval. I have that level of confidence. And that's how the biggest takeaway for me from, again, I just go back to the point, Nilendra, your level of self-esteem is improved out of sight when you have the confidence to stand up in front of a group of strangers. Out of sight.
When you have that confidence, you don't need anyone else's opinion, because you are confident on yourself, and that's unbreakable. So that's your message. Well done, Con. Well done on that. I'm really happy how you have prospered in this arena after all those issues. So, especially when you're talking about the modern day, as you know, the leadership starts from the family unit, which is the nuclear unit of the society. However, in the modern day, this unit is getting challenged day by day, especially with the modern day divorce rate, which is almost getting closer to 60%. So the children, they don't have the nature or nurturing or the teachings of their either mother or the father. So having them, nurturing them, and then their teachings, their values, these children, they have lost. Mostly the media machines are teaching them or putting all the information in their heads, so that they are getting programmed by the media and the schools, not their parents. Can you explain how this has affected to the leadership of the youth?
Where do we start? Okay, so I guess the first point is, let's go back to the news, and there's no good news in the news. They sell bad news, they sell fear, they sell anxiety, because that's what people, the majority of the people, want. It's ingrained in them. I went, oh, goodness me, 8 months without watching the news. And I can't tell you how much better I felt about me, but about life in general.
I don't watch
That's
TV at all. I don't watch TV at
There
all.
you go. Good for
I don't want
you.
to get programmed. Yeah.
Yeah, good for you. There's the first thing. The news, the media plays a significant part, but ultimately that gets back to the population as well. Because if they didn't buy it, the media wouldn't sell it. So it's a bit of a conflict there. But let's move on from that. So the news is a major issue because there's nothing but bad news and fear. As far as the family unit's concerned, look, I've gone through a divorce, relationship breakdown. I'm certainly no relationship expert. What I can speak of is from my experience with my children, in that even when I was going through my divorce, I made a point of doing what I felt was in the best interest of my children. Not necessarily me, but what was in the best interest of my children. I wanted them to be emotionally balanced. I wanted them to be emotionally stable. And what I see as the biggest challenge in terms of the family unit, and obviously you spoke about the divorce rate. And again, I'm not a divorce expert, divorce lawyer here, but what you spoke about is that when there is a relationship breakdown and there is conflict between the two parents, and they're using the children as ammunition.
Yeah.
That
I've heard one parent is saying all the detrimental things about the other. It's happening vice versa, and then children is getting lost in between.
And that for me is the biggest issue, right? People divorce again. People divorce for a raft of reasons, and I have no level of expertise in that area. I can only speak from my experiences. What I can say is that if the parents are on the same page in terms of how they raise their children and communicating values and not putting each other down in front of the children, it makes a significantly different outcome. Where you have single parent, people say, oh, you need a mother and a father. Again, I'm not an expert in that area. What you need is stability, and there needs to be structure. We know as we run a business, there's got to be structure. From a personal development perspective, we need to have structure. All right. And kids growing up, for me, are no different.
How do you think it is really important for the leadership, so that to build that connection will certainly affect to the leadership of the children, to give the message, the proper message? Is that what you're trying to impress, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So it starts with the parents. There's no question about that. And so, again, I'll be careful what I say here, but we spoke about in a leadership role, people will look at what your actions and what you say, are they congruent? And kids are the same. Kids are the same. You say one thing, but you do something else, and the kids go, well, hang on, Dad, that's not what you said. How come I have to do that, but you don't? You do something completely different. So that's not demonstrating real leadership. Is something that the kids can then take away.
Yeah. So mostly kids follow the parents' pathways. So it's really important. And then how to get out of it, you have to have only few percentage of children has the ability to do that. So which is catastrophic for the modern society. So let's move on to the next question. Now, as the podcast itself, it says the traditional leadership. So when you think about the leaders in the past, Alexander the Great, Napoleon, Winston Churchill, Kublai Khan, Genghis Khan, you can name a lot of leaders. Now, from these leaders of Augustus Caesar, Julius Caesar, from these leaders, for the leaders in the present, what kind of qualities, skills that these modern day leaders can learn from the leaders in the past, the great leaders ever existed?
So the first thing, and mentioning all those great leaders, and I'm not as I've mentioned to you, I'm not necessarily a history buff. I did have a morbid fascination with World War I and World War II. So, you talk about Winston Churchill and people like that at that era. Here's the thing, and if I suggest that you put this in your notes, or for the listeners and the viewers, there's a TED talk by a gentleman by the name of Simon Callahan, I believe. I'll double check that. And he does a TEDx talk in Verona in Italy. And it's about leadership communication. And he mentions a lot of those people that you've just mentioned. And one of the skills that they had that is very, very powerful, and I all my courses, all my workshops, it's just so fundamental, is they could emotionally connect with their audience with not only the words that they chose, but how they said them. In other words, their vocal tonality. And if you want to be a great leader, not a good leader, if you want to be a great leader, you need to understand the right words that will connect with your audience emotionally, but also the tonality that you use to communicate it. And I'm going to use two extreme examples here for you. Adolf Hitler, one of the most evil individuals ever to set foot on this earth. He convinced people because of his oratory skills.
Yes.
Winston Churchill did the same thing. Completely different people, but their oratory skills
are the same.
Are powerful. And if you watch that, as I said, that TEDx talk, it is just it absolutely reinforces. He talks about the language of leaders, and if you want to be a great leader, not a good leader, if you want to be a great leader, look at the language that you use and the tonality and how you can emotionally connect with your audience, because that in itself will inspire an audience. And that's the modern day leaders. That's one thing, the people that you mentioned, they were all outstanding orators.
Wonderful, Con. I couldn't expect any better answer for that question than this, especially from a speaking coach like you. That's really wonderful insights from you. So I wanted to know anyone who wanted to join public speaking, who's shy or scared. Can you explain how to start or how to break the ice, how to get off that space and get over?
So there's a little story about a boy and a horse, and they're in a forest. And the little boy is the forest is very dense, can't see, it's dark. And the little boy says to the horse, "I'm scared. I can't see, I can't see a way out. I can't see where we're going." And the horse says to him, "Can you see the next step?" He says, "Yes." He says, "Just take one step, and then the next, and then the next. A journey of 1,000 miles starts but with one step." And as what's the word I'm looking for? As cliche as it sounds, it's true. Anything that we want to do, just begin.
You can't do it overnight. You can't be the best speaker in the world overnight. It takes time.
No. If any endeavor, whether it's public speaking, your physical fitness, your relationships, it doesn't matter what it is. You have to start small and just continue to improve. Be a little bit better tomorrow that you were today. The other thing is, which probably set me back 6 months, and again, advice for your audience, is comparison. I walked into Toastmasters that night and I was in awe of the speakers there. And for me, it was like, wow, how am I ever going to be able to do this? How am I going to be able to be as confident as they are? It wasn't about speaking in public or teaching people how to speak in public. It was about that level of confidence that they had standing in front of a strange group. And I battled with that for many, many months. And so a couple of things here. Firstly, don't compare yourself to other people because you don't know what their story is. Everyone's at a different point in their journey. So don't compare yourself to anybody else. You do you. You follow your journey, your path. That's the first thing. The second thing is statistics tell us there was a survey in America at quite a significant college some time ago, and they worked out that roughly 78% of the adult population had a fear or some level of anxiety of speaking in public. Of that 78%, right? And we can take that figure and you can extrapolate that into other areas, other countries of the Western world, whether it's Europe, UK, Australia, and it's going to be about the same. It may vary by a little bit, right? But of that percentage, 2/3 were women, 1/3 were men. They also worked out that as public speaking and communication skills is one of the most sought after skills that employers and or human resources managers look for, right? Your ability to clearly articulate, speak in public and communicate positively affected your income and your likelihood of promotion by 10 to 15% respectively. Yet, despite those statistics, only 8% seek professional help. And so you can take this back to your club, even though it's not professional help as such. You can take this back to your club and pat them all on the back, as everyone else can that's in Toastmasters, because they are a small minority of people who understand the value and importance of being able to speak in public and be an effective communicator. It's very, very powerful. So if they want to accelerate, if they're happy just to go on a journey, join Toastmasters, or irrespective, join Toastmasters. Doesn't matter what you want to do, join Toastmasters, because as you know, you'll get opportunities every week or every meeting to, whether it's impromptu speaking, whether it's do a presentation, whether it's do an evaluation, whatever it is, you get an opportunity to speak and practice your skills. If you're serious in terms of you want to accelerate your growth, look at doing a program with a professional speaking communication speaker and trainer, because that in itself will accelerate you by a minimum 12 months. So just start. Right? Nobody's going to throw rotten fruit at you. Nobody's going to laugh at you. It's a safe environment. Just start.
think if someone laughs at me, it motivates me more than anything. So I would take the laughs. I'm that kind of a person. On the other hand, I remember you gave me the evaluation of my first speech, and then you were all over me, right? I can still remember the day. So, and then when I was leaving the Adelaide City Toastmasters, when I was moving to Sydney, you gave my final evaluation as well. That is also a special thing. I wanted to.
Thank you.
Yeah. So mention. Now you're having a public speaking program, a course which can accelerate the speaking skills or the speaking abilities of anyone who would like to enhance their speaking skills.
Mm.
So can you explain about that for our audience?
Okay, so there's a couple of things that I do fundamentally outside of the corporate work that I do. So, I do public speaking and communication training for corporate organizations. But from a public perspective, I do two things. I do one-on-one coaching and mentoring. And there's different programs. And it's really about, it's one-on-one. What would just take you as an example here, Nilendra, if we were working together, it would be identifying exactly where you want to be, what your goal is, and then reverse engineering and going, okay, here's what you need to improve on, this, and this, and focus on those areas. We do that by regular video recording, because one of the things that I learned in my journey very early on is that until you actually see yourself doing something, you kind of don't believe that you do. One of the things that I was in my early days of being evaluated was that I moved around on stage too much. And I say, nah, rubbish. What do you know? Nah, rubbish. And then somebody recorded me, and guess what? I did. And so that's part of my one-on-one coaching, to video people so they can go, not just listen to what I say, but see. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
And so that's a really intense program, and it's outcome focused, and everybody that goes through the program is significantly advanced, improving. The other thing that I do is I run my signature program, which is it's a 5-week, 5 Mondays at the moment in person. It's a confidence speaking and communication program where and there'll be a online version very, very soon, which I'll touch base with you on when it is, which will be on this format, and anybody can join anywhere in the world for that matter. But it's one of the core fundamentals for me is a psychology of communication, understanding how we receive messages and how we process. I can teach you body language. I can teach you vocal variety. I can teach you language. I can teach you all those things. But if you don't have a foundational understanding of why, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. So core for me is teaching that aspect. And that's probably one of the areas that my program is a little bit different to most others. I focus on, fear, what it is, how to deal with it, strategies to deal with it. And every time, people, you just see the light bulbs go off. People go, oh, wow, yeah, I didn't think of that. And then, of course, body language, vocal variety, language, we do evaluations. We do how to do an introduction, because, again, introductions are really, really important if you're doing presentations. And so that's one of the things, that's one of the programs that I do as well.
Wonderful, Con. It's really amazing. Also, all the listeners, it's a great privilege to listen and then get your experiences. Even listening to this podcast, I think many people can improve their speaking skills to the next level. It's really beneficial for everyone who's listening to this podcast as well. So once again, thank you for joining this a podcast as the first guest. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much again. Do you have any final words?
Mate, it's been a pleasure, Nilendra. We've missed you at Adelaide City Toastmasters, and I promise you, when I get to Sydney, I'll definitely. And again, I congratulate you for your podcast, and I wish you all the best in the world and success moving forward. And again, mate, anything I can do, just you know where I am.